To start off, on the offside front of the engine compartment, you have your pipe here that takes washer fluid from the washer fluid tank via the pump to the washer fluid jets. Attaching the top of the strut to one of your load-bearing members, you have 3 nuts here that hold the top of the strut to the load-bearing member. Now this, underneath here, you would have your bearing for your McPherson strut top. Moving over to this location, you've got your brake fluid cap and tank. The brake fluid reservoir is used to not only store excess brake fluid in the braking system, but it's also used to prevent air from going into your master cylinder. Underneath the tank you have your master cylinder. When you push the brake pedal, you move a push rod that pushes 2 pistons inside the master cylinder, pressurizing the braking system and thus operating the brakes. Behind the master cylinder you have your brake booster. In cars with disc brakes, you need power assistant or it would be very hard to operate the brakes. Also in this location you have a pipe that feeds your clutch main cylinder, 2 of your pipes that goes to your ABS modulator, and the pipe that feeds vacuum to your vacuum powered brake booster. In this location you can see your 2 pipes going to and from your evaporator via the metering valve. The valve is there to create a massive pressure drop, cooling the evaporator down. You can just see you've got a component here that's part of your emission control system. On the unit you've got quite a few things going on here. You've got sensors to tell the ECU what's going on, and other systems. Moving over here, you can see your heat shield that covers your turbine housing of the turbocharger. When the engine is operating, the turbine housing gets really hot. So to protect components from heat damage, you have a heat shield typically covering your turbocharger. To control boost pressure, you have an actuator here that operates a push rod that operates your variable guide vanes of the turbocharger turbine housing. In this vehicle, instead of using a wastegate, you use what's known as variable guide vanes. Inside the compressor housing you have a fan in there that compresses more air into the engine, improving volumetric efficiency. You can just see your supply line for your turbocharger bearings. Without oil, the turbocharger would fail. Moving to the right, you have your pipe that goes via your mass airflow sensor to your air filter box. If you were to remove the lid, you would have your air filter element. The air filter element is there to reduce dust and debris from going into the engine's intake system. Moving the camera back here, you have your fuel filter. The fuel filter minimizes the chances of water, dirt, debris and sediment from going into the fuel injection system. On the filter itself, you've got 2 of your pipes that are part of the fuel system and other components. Moving over here, you can see your electrical connectors for your engine control unit. This component here is your lid for your power distribution box. The reason why manufacturers put their air intakes far away from the engine is so it does not draw in hot air from the engine compartment. Underneath your air intake pipe you have your 12-volt battery. In this location you have your cover for your positive post, negative post, and battery monitoring sensor. You've got a cover here that covers the battery to improve the battery's thermal efficiency, and you've got a piece of metal here that's part of your system to hold the battery in the vehicle. To the right of the battery you've got your manufacturer diagnostic connector. This connector is used so that the manufacturer's service technicians can plug in the manufacturer's diagnostic machine to the vehicle. In this location here, you've got a series of wires that are part of a wiring harness that goes to your electrical connector to control and power that headlight. You've got a service cover here and here that you can remove to gain access to the interior of the headlight. There's an adjuster here so that service personnel can adjust headlight aim. Located in this location, you have one of your airbag crash sensors. In the center of the slam panel, you have your safety latch. Moving the camera to this location, you can see your pipe that goes from your intercooler to your throttle body. And on the throttle body, you've got your electric motor to move the throttle body. The throttle body in a diesel engine does not control the output of the engine, but instead it's used to not only enhance EGR efficiency, but it's also used to smooth down the shutdown of the engine. Moving the camera down here, you have your oil filter housing. Inside there, you've got the oil filter element. Typically on this style of housing, you will have a fitting here that you can attach a hexagon socket to. Moving down here, you have your starter motor. On the starter motor itself, you've got your housing that houses the electric motor. You've also got your solenoid and other components. The starter motor is very important because it's used to crank the engine over in the correct direction. And finally, in this location, you can see your pipe that goes from the radiator and takes coolant back into the engine, wiring harnesses and other components. This component here is your AC compressor. An air conditioning compressor is important because it's used to pump the refrigerant around the system. This is your pulley that's part of your air conditioning compressor. The pulley is driven by a belt that is known as your auxiliary belt. Belt is used to drive auxiliary systems like your alternator and other components. This over here is your high pressure pump. The pump is used to pump up the fuel to very, very, very high pressure to be used for the fuel injection system. Moving the camera over here, you have your pressure cap. Inside the cap, you have a valve that opens to take the expanded coolant from the engine to the expansion tank. You've got dust covers here and here that you can remove to gain access to your recharge points for your air conditioning system. This pipe here has two pipes in one. As you go up the pipe, it turns into two pipes again. This is your washer fluid cap, and this is the neck that goes down to your tank. Up here you have your expansion tank and cap for the tank. Behind the right hand engine mount bracket you have an additional fuse box lid. Moving over here you have your engine cover. If you were to remove the engine cover, you would see your fuel rail, fuel injectors and other different components. There is a hole located on the engine cover for your oil filler cap. Just in front of the engine cover you have your dipstick. The dipstick is there to tell you how much oil you have in the oil sump. Thank you very much for watching my video and goodbye.